On today's episode, we talk morning versus evening topwater bites. We have fresh Major League Fishing and Bassmaster Elite Series recaps. We discuss some big price increases, some that have already hit and some that are coming soon. And we answer your questions about the G Loomis GCX rods, tournament site selection, and more on today's episode of Tackle Talk.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Dance, and you're listening to Tackle Talk.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast, brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. World-class fishing gear, unmatched personal service. Now, here's your host, Andrew Hayes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Tackle Talk Podcast. As always, we are brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. A great family-owned mom and pop shop in southern Indiana is ready to take care of you with a selection of great brand new and lightly used fishing rods and reels. They also have a great selection of baits, line, everything that you could need for your fishing adventures, shipped right to your door from some of the best people in the business. So if you head over there right now, you will see that they have some great sales going on that you don't want to miss out on. Like, they are finishing up their 40% off select used gear sale. They also have some great deals on Dobbins, Berkeley, and some other great deals over there at AmericanLegacyFishing.com. Also, be sure to check out the American Legacy Elite program. For $49 a year, you get free shipping on every single order. You get 10% back on every single order, no questions asked. Those two things alone save you money, usually for me in like the first order that I make with them. That pays for itself. And then I get to enjoy those benefits all year long. Free shipping with no minimums. If you need a crankbait, you order a crankbait, they ship you the crankbait for free. You don't have to worry about, oh, I got to hit $50 or I got to hit $99 to make this order worth it. You can just go buy like individual things if you want to. That freedom is so nice to have with American Legacy with that elite membership. But go check them out. They are standing by and ready to help you with all of your fishing needs. That is AmericanLegacyFishing.com. And as always, you can use code TackleTalk5. That's going to get you an extra 5% off everything on the website, both regularly priced and sale items. It's stackable, a great code to use every single time you check out. TackleTalk5 over at www.AmericanLegacyFishing.com. Okay, folks, the very first thing I have to say here today, and I'm hoping it's not too big of an issue, but just in case you notice a difference in the sound of today's episode, we recently moved houses, which is cool. It's a good thing for us as like a family here and all of that, but it means that I lost my studio that I've been working out of for the past few years. And I guess I should probably put studio in air quotes there, right? The spare bedroom that I had kind of set up to be the Tackle Talk studio with like, treatment on the walls and noise dampening and all that kind of stuff, because this house and the house we lived in before were both very echoey houses. So I'm hoping that it's not that big of a deal for you guys right now. But to paint a picture for you guys, I am currently sitting Indian style on the floor in a completely bare room. There's nothing on the walls. There's no furniture in here. It is just me and a microphone that I've set up on like a makeshift stand here and my laptop. So I hope that this sounds okay. I'm going to try my best in post edit to make sure that it doesn't sound terrible. But just in case you notice a lot of echo or it doesn't really sound like you're used to. I know when you listen to something every single week, you just get used to how it sounds, and today might sound a little different. So I just wanted to preface that. Hopefully I can dial this in the next couple weeks, but just in case, I just wanted to address it. Bear with me for the next couple weeks while I get this room in order and I make some cheap acoustic panels to put on the wall to help with the echo and the sound, and hopefully we'll quickly be right back to that sound that you're used to here on the show. But just in case, I figured I would address that right off the top here. Okay, next up here, we had a huge weekend for professional fishing as both the Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour and the Bassmaster Elite Series were both in action after hiatuses, and we got a full weekend of diverse northern bass fishing. So let's start with Major League Fishing here. The MLF-BPT just finished its Stage 7 at Saginaw Bay in Bay City, Michigan, August 7th through 10th, which was the final event of the 2025 Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour season. So your results here from the season finale are 10th place, James Elam. 9th went to Keith Carson. 8th, Spencer Shuffield. 7th place, Nick Hatfield. 6th place, Brian Thrift. 5th place, Brent Ayler. 4th went to Cole Floyd. 3rd, Edwin Evers. 2nd place, Todd Faircloth. And 1st place, stop me if you've heard this before, Jacob Wheeler. So if you're keeping count, ladies and gentlemen, that is MLF victory number 10 for Jacob Wheeler since the inception of the BPT in 2019. So that was 7 years ago. He's got 10 wins in 7 years. That is a run the likes of which we've probably only seen one time, to my knowledge, in modern bass fishing, like 80s, 90s, and on. And that's KVD from like probably 2005 to 2011, that time frame where I believe he had something like 13 wins in 7 seasons. Now, you can make the argument that field sizes are different, technology is different. Of course, when you compare eras, there's going to be differences. But at the end of the day, Jacob Wheeler is on one of the most impressive runs we've ever seen in pro fishing. And I don't know what else to say that we haven't already said before. It seems like 1,000 times on this show, but we are watching one of the greats right before our eyes. And I think it's important to recognize that and just enjoy the ride. So a huge congratulations to Jacob Wheeler on MLF BPT win number 10 at Saginaw Bay. Now, the other storyline here for this event is that since it's the final event of the season, that means we get to crown our 2025 Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour Angler of the Year. Now, before we do, let's just remind you who has won the last 4 or 5 years or so. So in 2021, your Angler of the Year was Jacob Wheeler. In 2022, your Angler of the Year was Jacob Wheeler. In 2023, your Angler of the Year, we had a switch up, was Matt Becker. And in 2024, your Angler of the Year was back to Jacob Wheeler. So that was 3 out of the last 4 seasons Jacob Wheeler had won Angler of the Year, which sets the stage for 2025. Would anybody dethrone the gentleman that has won it 3 out of the last 4 seasons and has been on a generational run of dominance, the likes of which, like I said, we've probably only seen maybe one time ever in fishing? Could anybody do it? Could Jake Lawrence, who had an incredible year anchored by that amazing finish at Nickajack where he beat Jacob Wheeler on a buzzer beater, could he replicate that again and win the AOY race in huge fashion in the final event? What about Drew Gill or Ron Nelson or Alton Jones Jr., all 3 of which were chomping at the bit in 3rd, 4th, and 5th places heading into this last event of the season? Well, folks, the answer there simply is no. Nobody could do it. Captain Consistency himself, Mr. Jacob Wheeler, wins his staggering 4th Angler of the Year title in the last 5 years on the Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour. And I don't know how to accurately describe how impressive that is, because you've got 50 plus of the best anglers on the planet, event after event. Jacob Wheeler is still showing up and dominating. And if, again, we want to call it back to someone that we have seen do something like this before, this feat, 4 out of 5 years of winning an Angler of the Year, has only been done one other time to my knowledge, and that was on the Bassmaster side, and that was again a gentleman by the name of Kevin Van Dam. And Kevin not only won 4 out of 5, he won 4 out of 4, going back to back to back to back Angler of the Year titles from 2008 to 2011. And now for Wheeler, that makes 10 wins and 4 Angler of the Year titles since the Bass Pro Tour was formed in 2019. That is bananas. Again, we are looking at probably a pretty clear 1 and 2 in terms of dominant runs that we've seen in my lifetime, at least on the pro fishing side of things. Now, it's no secret that as a Midwesterner, I am a big fan of watching someone like Jacob win these events, because he grew up like an hour and a half away from me in an area of the country where we don't really see a lot of true pro fishing hammers come out of, this sort of Ohio, Indiana, Illinois corridor over here. We don't have a lot of guys that have really broken through to the highest level of the sport. I can think of maybe, 7, 8, 9 off the top of my head, but that's really about it. There's not a ton, especially compared to other parts of the country. So that's just cool for us around here in this sort of area to see somebody that's from around here continue to do it and do it at the highest level. But either way, congratulations to Jacob Wheeler. I sure hope that trophy shelf of his is screwed into the studs, because it's got to be getting pretty heavy at this point. Okay, and then at the same time that the Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour was at Saginaw Bay, the Bassmaster Elite Series was about 2 hours southeast of there at Lake St. Clair, also in Michigan. And as cool and diverse as Major League Fishing's tournament was on Saginaw Bay, the St. Clair event for Bassmaster was just a good old-fashioned northern smallmouth beatdown. So your top 10 here from St. Clair on the Bassmaster side: 10th place, Alex Redwine; 9th place, Paul Mueller; 8th place, Tucker Smith; 7th went to Cole Sands; 6th place, Evan Kung; 5th place, Brandon Polinick; 4th, Matt Robertson; 3rd, Koya Fujita; 2nd place, Logan Parks; and 1st place, Trey McKinney. So Trey McKinney now has won his second Bassmaster Elite Series event before he even turns 21. I mean, the guy can't legally buy a beer yet, but he has 2 blue trophies on the trophy shelf. That is phenom status right there. I mean, there are some very, very well-known household name anglers that have never won 1 Elite Series title. And now Trey has 2 to his name. He's got a Rookie of the Year win, and he's currently tied for Angler of the Year this year with 1 event to go, and in all honesty, should have won Angler of the Year last year if it weren't for a few silly mistakes. The kid is just a stone cold killer, and someone online the other day said it best. They said, are we allowed to say Trey is good yet, or are we still pretending otherwise? And I, for one, agree with that. The kid is a certified stick, and he seems to come from a good family. You see them praying together at the boat ramps, and yes, he made some silly mistakes last year, but he was like 20 years old. So forgetting your check-in time, not learning the no-wake areas before takeoff, all that kind of stuff will come with time and with maturity. I mean, I remember what I was like at age 20, and I probably wasn't the most mature kid in the world either, but the guy is in almost every single tournament that he has competed in so far. And I mean in it, like top 10 level competition every single time. Trey's name is always on that leaderboard the past 2 years. There's 100 plus anglers in the Bassmaster Elite Series, and Trey has 10 top 10s in the last 2 years. And in those 2 years, he has competed in 18 events, 17 regular season, 1 Bassmaster Classic, and in those 18 events so far, he has 10 top 10s, and in all 18 events, he's only been outside 30th place 3 times out of 100 people plus. So 15 out of 18 events, he's been in your top 30. That consistency is scary, especially from someone that young. And I think it's safe to say that Trey is going to be a problem for a lot of Elite Series guys for a long, long time. So congratulations to Trey McKinney. And now the Bassmaster Elite Series has one final event coming up, the season finale, with a very tight Angler of the Year race on the line as they get ready to head to the Mississippi River up in La Crosse, Wisconsin, August 21st through 24th. Okay, next up here on the show today, this hurts me to say, but I have to air kind of a bit of a grievance with one of the products that we reviewed at ICAST a few weeks ago, and it's a product that I had very, very high praise for, the Daiwa Tatula Cork Bass Rods. Now, nothing has changed about the rods themselves. I thoroughly stand by everything that we said in the ICAST episode, but there has been one big change, and that is the price. So the Tatula Cork Bass Rods are no longer $149.99. As we said in the iCast episode, they are now listed at $179.99. Now, you might be saying, hey, Andrew, whatever price increases happen, everything's going to be going up right now. Shoot, Tackle Talk was one of the first shows that actually covered the price increases and the tariff impact on upcoming MSRPs and all that kind of stuff. And you would be correct, but the timing of this specific price increase is annoying. And this is coming from someone that really likes Daiwa a lot. And I would even say that I'm liking Daiwa more and more by the day. The Daiwa versus Shimano tug-of-war that's been going on in my head for the past few years has definitely seen an increase in the Daiwa side of things as of late. The new Tatula SVs, the Tatula 100 frame redesign from a few years back that's now trickled into the 150s and the 200s, the Tatula XT rods, the Zillions. I mean, I've been leaning on Daiwa more and more lately than I have in the last few years, but the timing of this price increase, like I said, it's annoying because at ICAST, July 16th through 18th, Daiwa advertised these rods at $149, and that was what was on the signs at ICAST. That's what they submitted to the new product showcase. That's what the reps told everybody and the media and the buyers, and then a few days later, they raised that price seemingly to $179. And this didn't just happen like today as we're talking about this. This happened like a week or two ago. So literally days after ICAST, they bumped that price up $30. So whether it was their intention or not, the optics aren't great on that, because that makes it look like they held off on this price increase so that they could have all of this great press and publicity and talk about these rods at the $149 price point at ICAST, and then quietly raise that price a few days later after the media and the event and everything was over. There's no way that everybody at Daiwa didn't know that this price increase was coming in a few days as they were looking people in the eyes and talking to buyers and media and everybody and calling calling these $149 rods. And that just sucks because I don't know about you, but $30 is a big increase on a budget-friendly rod. $149 to $179 means a 20% increase. That's a substantial increase. And to try and squeak that past us a few days after you were talking, like I said, to all of these, radio and TV shows and web articles and YouTube channels and podcasts like this, telling all of us one price, knowing that you were just waiting until iCast was over to raise it, that's what it seems like happened, at least from the outside looking in, and that's not a great look. Now, I have no inside information on how this actually went. I don't work with Daiwa. I don't know any more information than you do listening to this, but as a consumer, it kind of feels like we got the rug pulled out from under us, and that's not a fun feeling to have. So just a quick update on the Tatula Cork bass rods. You might get lucky and still find some random websites that have the old MSRP on them. If so, buy them now because that price is already adjusted on almost every other major retailer's website as of now. The Tatula Cork bass rods that we talked about at iCast are now $179, not $149. Okay, next up here, let's talk for a second about something that we've discussed on the show before, and if my memory serves me correct, we've briefly hit on it in the Mailbag a while back, but it's something that you're seeing more and more on social media, and I feel like we should just take a few minutes to talk about this. So this time of year, July and August, you're going to see a ton of new baits hit the market in the aftermath of iCast, and part of that marketing strategy by these bait companies is really cool, well-produced, kind of teaser videos of the products, often including underwater footage. Now, underwater footage of like the action or the movement in a test tank or swimming pool or really clear lake or something, that's not what I'm talking about here today. What I want to address is the footage most of these companies are using of the actual fish biting the bait. And we've all seen it, the cool underwater shot of a fish kind of nosing up to that new bait and sucking it in and really featuring that new bait that company X is trying to sell you. Now, the thing that we should all be aware of, especially for newer anglers or anglers that are not quite so savvy with what's going on sometimes in some of those videos, is that most of those videos that you're watching of those fish eating the actual baits feature bedding smallmouth, which is why I think you should take most of those with a grain of salt. I posted this on Instagram a couple of days ago, and I'll say it again. No one has ever sold more baits than a smallmouth on a bed. Why? Because if you've ever bed fished for smallmouth bass, you probably know that when those fish are locked on, they will eat almost anything. You can throw drop shots, Ned rigs, jigs, wacky rigs, Texas rigs, swim baits, dice, craws, whatever you want to throw, they are in protection mode. So the bait itself doesn't really matter. It's about where you cast it, which is why almost every one of those videos that you guys see of those new dice baits or the new finesse baits feature 1, a smallmouth bass, 2, a pretty stationary smallmouth that makes it easy to pre-place that camera down there in the right spot, and 3, you'll notice that that fish either goes over and eats it on the fall or noses up to that bait and then sucks it in. And as a bonus, a lot of times you can actually look at the bottom composition in these videos, and unless they do a really good job of framing the shot, you can see that the fish is clearly on a bed. Now, I'm not saying there's anything immoral or inherently wrong about getting those shots of your bait being eaten, but there is something a little disingenuous about using that shot to try and prove how effective your bait is. Because if I go find a smallmouth locked on a bed, I can get that smallmouth to eat almost anything. I could get it to eat a Lego piece if I rigged it on a hook, or a Sharpie cap, or I don't know, a house key or something like that. Anything that's the right size and presented in the right way will draw attention from that fish and probably get bit at some point. So trying to use bedding smallmouth to show the effectiveness of your bait and sell baits is like using a starving dog to show how much dogs like this certain brand of dog food. If the dog hasn't eaten in 4 days, it's going to eat whatever dog food you put in front of it. The same thing with a smallmouth bass that's on a bed. They will eat almost anything. So for instance, like I don't mean to put anybody on blast here or take a big shot at a company or anything, but more of like a heads up of what to look for and what I'm talking about. Take like the regular Z-Man Instagram page. Just go over there. We'll pick on Z-Man for a second. Again, nothing personal to Z-Man. They're just an easy target on this because they're the last one I saw. But go back and look at like the initial release of the video snippets that they posted there for those new fuzzy baits. And there are two videos in particular where this is really easy to spot. So the first one is of the fuzzy TRD, and then the second one is of the fuzzy nugget. And they were both posted about 6 days apart, one on June 19th and one on June 25th. And if you look at those two videos, not only do they show, obviously, the bait being thrown at a fish that is most likely on a bed, but it looks like the same darn bed that's in both videos. And that's what's so funny. There's a very distinct, like either white rope or root system down there on the bottom of the bed that's pretty easy to spot in both videos. So then fast forward to July 7th, and they post another video of like the fuzzy bugs. So that was one of the other fuzzy baits that came out, also featuring a smallmouth that is clearly on a bed. You can see the bed clear as day on the bottom in the video. So that's the kind of stuff just to be aware of, right? I would honestly rather see a fish in a tank eat your bait for a marketing video than a fish on a bed, because at least in the tank, you know that that fish is in the tank and it's captive, and they're not trying to make it a particularly accurate representation of most situations out there in the wild, or at least try and masquerade it as one, right? You know what you're getting when you see a fish eating it at like a really well-lit tank scenario or on a set or something like that. So is it wrong what these companies are doing? No, it's not technically wrong in the sense that a lot of people bed fish, and that's something that you're allowed to do, obviously, if it's legal where you're fishing. If it is legal, go for it. I am not one of those like anti-bed fishing guys, those people that say, oh, nobody should be bed fishing. Now, I personally get bored with bed fishing pretty quickly, and then I want to move on to more traditional fishing or different patterns. That's what happened when we went up to Lake Erie this year with the kayaks. I spent probably, 4 hours bed fishing with my buddy, and then we kind of got it out of our system, and then we moved a little bit further away from shore and found fish on like weed edges and points and stuff like that. But if you do want to bed fish, go for it. As long as you're being responsible and getting that fish back, and you're not harassing the same fish over and over again and catching that same fish time and time again, then bed fish away, go for it. But if you're a kid or a newer angler watching these videos of these fish eating these baits, especially the new baits that they're marketing right now underwater, just keep in mind those videos might not be as sporting or as genuine as they look on the internet. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't some people out there shooting great underwater shots right now, because there are, and I tip my hat to those people because it's awesome the footage they're able to get. But a lot of these companies seemingly are just using bedding smallmouth. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys a quick reminder here today that a healthy dose of skepticism when you see any underwater shots from a lot of these big brands is usually beneficial. Okay, next up here, new segment alert. We are going to start a new weekly segment that I'm going to call the fishing poll. Now, not poll like P-O-L-E. We're going to call this the fishing poll like P-O-L-L, like a survey. So the fishing poll. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you guys a very specific question each week. And I'm going to ask you guys to weigh in on social media and the website. We're still working on the back end website side of things, but for right now, I've been posting it on Instagram. So watch like our Tackle Talk podcast stories on Instagram. That's where we've been posting a lot of these lately, but I'm going to work it out to where this can be sort of like the mailbag, and you guys can take part, hopefully, on the website as well. But what I'm going to do with these questions is once the results are in, I'm going to bring those results here to the show, but I'm not going to open them or look at them ahead of time, because I want to kind of have a discussion and answer how I feel about the question, and then I'll look at the poll. I don't want to do it the other way, because I don't want to be influenced by what the majority opinion is before I answer the question. I want to go in blind. And this is something that I actually learned during our Battle of the Brands episode that we did. In that episode, I read the public poll numbers first, and then I decided whether or not I agreed with the public or not. And I think most of the time it wouldn't be an issue, but I just don't want to take a chance of that kind of having an influence on how I answer the question. So I want to give you my free and clear thoughts first, and then we get a little surprise and we get to see if the majority of you listening agreed or disagreed with me in real time. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So we're going to try this out here. This week, I asked you all, do you prefer the morning or evening topwater bite? And I have the results here on a tab in my web browser in front of me, but I have not opened them yet, because before I do, I want to give you my answer. And I prefer the evening bite. And there's a really simple reason why I'm going to answer evening bite, because as time passes, you often get to look forward to that bite getting better as time goes on, not worse. So what do I mean by that? Well, when you wake up in the morning and you go like really early in the morning, you get to your spot in the dark, you get in position, and then you capitalize on that early morning sunrise bite. When that bite starts, it's a race against the clock, because as that sun keeps climbing, that frenzy and that bite starts to die. And I feel like that window is a lot smaller on a lot of the morning bites that I've been on than it is on the evening bites. I've seen mornings where those fish completely shut off after like 5 or 10 minutes sometimes. It's an amazing bite. There's no better way to start your day for sure. That fog on the water, that first light illuminating the sky just enough to where you can see what you're doing, and then getting smashed on like some big walking bait or buzz bait, something like that. But the sense of urgency can be frustrating because you know that you've only got this small, finite window of time before that sun is too high and the magic is over. Meanwhile, on the evening bite, it seems like once that sun gets to a certain point and it's low enough that that evening bite starts to fire up, those fish will come up and eat, but then you get to look forward to the next, I don't know, whether it's 30 to 60 minutes or so, where hopefully that bite just keeps getting better and better as the sun gets lower. So you're not fighting time as much, it feels like, and it seems like you just get this longer window and that longer magic time frame to capitalize on that topwater bite. And you get the added bonus of being able to fish into the dark with topwater and it still be in play. So yes, the big frenzy might die, but I feel like the topwater bite is often still really viable into the dark and into kind of the middle of the night. It's a really fun time to fish if you keep at it and you don't go home. Nighttime topwater is a blast, especially when you get to switch over to something like a giant, obnoxious, crawler or a giant buzzbait or something like that. So I just feel like the window is a little bigger on the evening bite than it is on the morning bite. Now, the evening bite obviously has its downfalls, one of which being bugs and mosquitoes and all that kind of stuff. That can be the most frustrating thing in the world. And if you're like us and you're around here and you might be in a little bit of a sketchy area, that gets no bueno real quick at night. But for the most part, I am going to favor that evening topwater bite over the morning bite. Okay, that was my choice. I'm going to go with evening. I'm standing firm on the evening bite, but now's the fun part. We get to see what you guys said. So let's open up the tab here. Survey says, whoa, I was way off on this one. So 68% of you responded and said the morning topwater bite, while only 32% of you picked the evening bite. So not only was I on the opposite side, it wasn't even close. Over 2/3 of listeners picked the morning bite. Now, look, I get it, right? I understand the appeal of a morning topwater bite because the day is just getting started. You got up early. You almost got like borrowed time because instead of sleeping in, you gained all that time in your day by getting up early and starting before the sun came up. And once that topwater bite is over for the morning, you still have the whole day in front of you. And I know that that is a great selling point for the topwater bite. Also, that calm morning, like we said, that fog on the water, nature waking up around you. It's not as hot, so it's more comfortable to fish out there in like the dead of summer especially. There are a ton of benefits to that morning topwater bite. I definitely understand it. But for me, again, personally, I feel like you get a longer window of that topwater bite in the evening and into night. I also think I've probably caught more big fish in an evening topwater bite than a morning topwater bite. If you take like the results from my whole life so far, I would say the majority of big fish I've caught on topwater have been in the evening versus the morning. Now, you can also say, but Andrew, you said your favorite time to fish topwater is the evening, so maybe I have fished more in the evening than over the mornings of my life. I don't know. I would have to go back and really think about that, but just off the top of my head, I feel like bigger fish for me have came in the evening. And then when you pair that with, like I said, I feel like you get a bigger, longer window of that bite being viable and the bonus of being able to fish into the night where the topwater fun does not have to end. I'm still going to stick with the evening bite as my answer. But a very, very interesting result here for our first installment of the fishing poll. You guys disagreed with me by a wide margin. Okay, and finally here, let's crack open a few mailbag questions to get into before we end the show today. The first question here is from Sean, and he says, hey Andrew, so after working the Bassmaster Classic this year, I would like your opinion on this question. In other sports such as golf, the US Open is played at a very challenging course to see who is truly the best on the hardest stage. I feel like the Bassmaster Classic should do the same thing. Do you think it would be exciting to bring the Bassmaster Classic back to the Ohio River in, say, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or the Cincinnati area? I'm from Southern Ohio, so I'd be excited to see the pros have to fish these waters. Sean, I love this question, but I'm going to have to answer this in two different ways for you. I'm going to have to tell you what I personally would like to see just as a fan, me and my biases and everything included. And then I'm probably going to have to answer this in terms of what Bassmaster really should do, because I feel like those are two different things. So personally, yes. I 100% agree. I love to see these anglers get challenged. That's why, and this is a terribly unpopular opinion, I love watching events like the Sabine River, and I know it's like the least favorite of the pro anglers. I know it's one of the least favorite of fans, but I love watching events like that. I like watching the guys struggle. It's not just flipping around timber for 8-pounders or scoping offshore smallies for 22 pounds a day. It's tough. It's just a total grind. And I get to watch these guys do the same thing that I do on the weekend, struggle at a subpar fishery. I like watching that because the fun part about watching competitive fishing, I think for me anyway, is not just seeing like the big fish and all that kind of stuff. It's about learning from watching these anglers and what they're doing on the deck of the boat. The decision making, the bait selection, the cast angles, the techniques, the cadence. I like that side of things because those are things that I can take with me out on the water the next time I go out fishing and try to improve what I'm doing. And I learn a lot by watching these guys fish on harder, diverse, really struggle bus fisheries. I like watching that, and I learn more on those fisheries than I do watching them crack, 100 pounds at Fork or the St. Lawrence River or something like that. So selfishly, yes, I agree with you. I would love to see that. Now, on the flip side, what should Bassmaster really do? Should they really do that and bring the Bassmaster Classic back to somewhere like the Ohio River? No, I don't think they should, because Bassmaster is in the entertainment business, like it or not. All sports are. You're watching for entertainment, and it's just going to be more entertaining to watch guys catch 30-pound bags a day than it is to watch them catch 10-pound bags a day. It's just the truth. And then you pair that with the fact that Bassmaster has to host the Classic in an area that can handle the pure logistics of the Bassmaster Classic, so you need a large enough convention center and expo space to actually do the expo. You also need a giant arena that the boats and trucks can drive into for weigh-in. You need ample parking and hotel space and everything within like a few blocks of each other, hopefully. Preferably, those are the best cities to do it in. And then I'm sure they try and find an area with like a tourism department or a chamber of commerce or someone like that that will help them out financially. That's just smart business. And oh, by the way, you need a great fishery nearby as well. So to handle the pure amount of people that ascend on a town or a city for the Bassmaster Classic, it takes a special place nowadays. Back in the day, before it grew to what it is now, you could host it almost any place and get away with it, I'm sure. Now, it's probably a little tougher. Okay, the next question here is from Brad, and he says, "Hey, Andrew, you mentioned on today's episode, the $3,000 Arsenal episode, that you would choose the G Loomis GLX over the NRX currently. That got me wondering, what are your thoughts on the GCX series? I probably will never be able to afford an NRX or a GLX, but my local tackle shop sometimes sells used GCX rods for under $175. Is it worth it in that price range, or are there other rods you'd recommend? Also, are there any specific models you'd recommend over others in the GCX rod lineup that are good for special techniques or general use? Thanks for all you do. Love the podcast. I know it takes a lot of work behind the scenes. Brad." Well, hey, Brad, thanks for writing in. I appreciate it. The short answer is I would definitely scoop up a used GCX in really good condition for $175 all day long. That's like, I don't know, really quick math, probably like $85 off retail price. And those GCX rods are great rods too. Now, they're not going to be quite as light and quite as sensitive as the GLX or the NRX, but you're paying like a third or a fourth of the price, so you wouldn't expect it to be. But the GCX, I would put that on my rankings probably somewhere in the realm of like a Dobyns Champ XP. I probably put it around there. I wouldn't put it quite at like an X Pride level, but probably about even with the Champ XP. Now, the Shimano X Pride costs $279. The Champ XP also costs $279. The GCX is like $260 retail, I think, and then used at $175 is much cheaper than a Dobyns Champ XP or a Shimano X Pride. At $175, you're paying less than like what a Dobyns Caden costs nowadays, and I would definitely put the GCX over the Caden in my eyes. So, really simple answer is yes, that is a good deal, and I would have no hesitation on going for that. Now, they do have some cool models in the GCX lineup. They've got that 7.5 medium heavy extra fast casting rod, which is a cool like soft plastic rod. They've got a 7.1 medium extra fast spinning rod. It's a great all-around model for doing like a little bit more power stuff and still being able to handle finesse. So yeah, no issues with me on the GCX line at all. And again, for $175, that is a great deal. I would jump on that if I were you. Okay, and the last question here is from Catherine, and she says, "Hi, Andrew. I'm from Alabama, and I just started fishing seriously about 3 years ago. Since then, I've dove into every resource I can find, and Tackle Talk has been a huge help. Even though I can tell you're more Midwest-focused, a lot of the topics are useful to us down here, too. I do have one question. Everything price-wise keeps going up. I feel like I look at the price of a rod or a reel, and then I come back a few days later or a few weeks later, and it's different. Is this a normal thing in the fishing world, or is this inflation or tariff related? I listened to your tariff episode and it was great, but I'm having a hard time figuring out if the price increases that I'm seeing are permanent or might just be temporary. Thanks, Catherine." That is a great question, Catherine, and that is one that is hard to answer because, to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about what's going on more than you guys do at this point. I've got some inside sources at some companies that have sort of slow leaked out some stuff to me, but even then, I very rarely talk about that stuff on here because I feel like it's not my place to say sometimes. But what I would say is, to be safe, I would assume that every price increase you're seeing at this point is going to be permanent, because I have a very hard time believing that any of these prices are going to go back down, even if trade talks change or tariff rates change or whatever all that stuff is. Most companies are looking for a reason to raise prices anyway because of inflation and labor costs and supplies and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, I think the tariff thing really did screw a lot of these fishing companies, especially rods and reels, because almost everything is made overseas. But then on the flip side, I think the tariff thing also gave some of these companies the excuse that they've been looking for to raise prices in general. So as a good rule of thumb, prices will always go up over time, and they very, very, very rarely ever come down. Now, that brings us to another important note here. And I have been told, just like we saw and talked about some Daiwa increases at the top of the show, and Daiwa, by the way, went through some pretty substantial price increases in July on Zillions and Kages and Tatula SVs, Stees, the Elite rods, all that kind of stuff. Those went up pretty recently, in addition to those Tatula cork rods that we discussed happening a little bit later. But I've also been told that Shimano price increases are about to go up across the board as early as next week. Now, I don't know the exact numbers because I've heard conflicting information depending on who I talk to. So one person told me you'd be looking at probably 10 to 20% increases. One said 15 to 20. Another said they could go as high as 25 to 30% increases. So I don't know what the actual increases will be. I haven't seen like a parts list or an MSRP update list or anything like that. But I do have some indications that the increases will be different for rods and reels and for certain lineups in general. So what I'm not anticipating is a blanket price increase of X% across the board. I'm guessing it'll be a little different item to item, but if you are listening to this on August 12th when this episode comes out, from what I have been told, you have another couple days to maybe a week tops before these price increases for Shimano start hitting retailers. So if you want something from Shimano, I would buy it now. Again, based on what I've heard and what I've been told, I think we could realistically see, the end of the $99 SLX, which unfortunately we kind of guessed and assumed that would be coming a couple weeks ago at iCast. I said, I don't know how much longer that $99 SLX can hold on. It looks like it might not hold on much longer. I would also guess you're probably going to see a pretty substantial increase on the Shimano X-Pride Bs at $279. That's their most popular rod right now. So I would guess those are going to get a pretty nice bump. I think your Curados will probably go up. And I actually went as far as to screenshot every price of every Shimano rod and reel today so that I can go back and look in a week or two and see what actually went up and how much. So I will keep you guys updated on that, but just a fair warning, I feel like we owe it to you all, especially coming off of an episode like the 3K Arsenal build where it was so dependent on exact specific prices of each rod and reel. A few of those, which obviously were Shimano, I just feel like since I have been told that an increase is probably coming, that I should give you all that fair warning as well. So just a heads up, you might only have a couple more days at current Shimano pricing. Okay, everybody, that is today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate you all as always. If you can, do us a favor, leave us a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, wherever you listen. If you can leave us a written review on Apple, that helps us a ton. Go find us on the website, tackletalkpodcast.com. There you can submit a mailbag question, and I'm working on getting the fishing pole up there as well. As always, if you have any questions, you can email me at tackletalkpodcast.com, and we'll see you right back here next Tuesday for another brand new episode of Tackle Talk.
Thank you for listening to the Tackle Talk Podcast. Tackle Talk is produced by Andrew Hayes. Copyright 2019. For more, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.